republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to our August 25th, 2020 special meeting. For the folks that are here, again, fire exits are located in the places that I am pointing to. In the event that the fire alarm will sound, if this occurs, please move immediately in a common orderly manner to the nearest exits. All right. Routine matters. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby approve the following routine matters. CSD recommendations is listed in your packet. May I have a motion? Any discussions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have two presentations this evening. Mr. Finuccio is going to talk about our financial outlook, and our superintendent is going to probably give us some additional updates on our reopening plans.
Unless you wanted to. That was kind of small, I'm not sure. But I'm going to go that way. That'd be dropped off.
Hello.
Yeah, we need it for the stream, so just don't.
No, that's kind of hard to see. So I'm just going to read something from State Ed. This is a little loud. I can't concentrate myself. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I just want to give you an update from the state. I know we've been talking about take-backs for the last 4 months. I just want everybody to know that they're doing it, and they really haven't announced it publicly, so they just threw a little blurb on the website. And I realized that money was taken away because when they came in, it said we have 80%, and we're holding the rest of it, 20%. So on August 20th, 2020, it says on the state website, on August 13th, 2020, the Division of Budget issued the fiscal year 2021 first quarterly state budget financial plan, which notes that in the absence of federal action since the enactment of the fiscal year 2021 budget, the Department of Budget began withholding 20% of most local aid payments in June, and that all or a portion of these withholds may be converted to permanent reductions, depending on the size and the timing of federal aid, if any. Basically what that's saying is the federal government has not come out with a second stimulus plan to give the money to schools, and they are doing what they said they were going to do and withhold 20% of our aid. What it does state in here is that which may be converted to permanent reductions, which means we're never going to get the money. We were expected to be notified 15 days after June 30th, like we stated all along, and as you can see that they didn't really fulfill their obligation. Second paragraph. In July, the Department of Budget began approving general support for public schools payments to school districts, which includes general aid, excess cost aid, and BOCES aid at 80% of the otherwise scheduled amounts. What this means is they took away last year's money. The rest that was owed to us. And I'm going to go over that in the next slide. So, it wasn't supposed to be affected by last year's aid, but they did it anyway. Now I have to get this to work here. Larry, do I got to turn it on?
It should be on. You got to point it towards me.
All right. Well, I got to point it towards you.
Here, just a pencil.
Okay. I know it's kind of small, so I'll go through this slowly. Larry playing the game with me. So the top, this is this coming up year's aid. It's the 2020-21 state aid reductions, and it's hard for you to see, so I'm going to go through line by line. The first line is our foundation aid. That's the basis of, based on how many students we have enrolled. And that is $10 million, I'm just going to estimate, $10,670,000. That's a reduction of $2.1 million that they're going to be taking from us, just that aid alone. The next aid is a universal pre-kindergarten. So our UPK is $55,488. They're going to take away $11,097. The third one is BOCES aid, $1.8 million. That's $378,000 reduction. We go through BOCES for that purpose, so we can get aid back. That's what BOCES does to provide those services. So the problem I got is in the beginning they said they were going to take from foundation aid. Now they're taking away from categorical aid, which is everything. So they didn't tell us the truth. The next two, high cost access cost and private access cost, roughly about $500,000. So $100,000 is going to be taken away. What those two aids are is for our disabled kids that we place in a private setting or go to BOCES or some other place. So they're taking 20% away from our students with disabilities that we need the money to help for. The next two, hardware, technology, software, library, textbook, these are instructional material aids. That's roughly up about, it's $130,000, so they're taking about $26,000 from us. These are the codes we do to, buy computers, buy textbooks. They pay us dollar for dollar, so we have to make sure we spend that every year. It's probably one of the easiest things about my job is to make sure we spend that money. And transportation's next. Our transportation aid is $1.6 million, and they're taking 20% back, which is $319,000. We rely on transportation to bring the kids for a lot, and we're going to definitely miss that. Building aid, now, these are all our capital projects that were passed years and years ago. So for them to come and take 20%, this just seems very unfair. We agreed on it. The taxpayers agreed to paying a certain amount so that we wouldn't be burdened with the difference, and now we're going to have to pay 20% more. So that's about $1.3 million this year, and it's roughly around $266,000. So our full state aid this year is $16,182,000, and the reduction is $3.2 million. $3.2 million. So what they already took back, in the next part it says 2019-20 state aid reductions, excess cost and BOCES aid, $1.2 million. They held back $245,000. Now this is last year's money. So our auditors were here a few weeks ago closing up our books, and now we have to let them know that you got to subtract another $250,000 from our revenue fund. So the last part is, okay, well, what else do you want to take away from us? What about student breakfast and lunch? About $616,000 is what we get back in reimbursements from the aid from the federal government. What if the state holds $123,000? Our title grants, idea grants, we still have money that we're still trying to claim for last year because when the year finishes up, we have to fill out a form to get back the difference. And then all of next year's money, so that's another $300,000. So in total, it could be $3.8 million that we lose this year. I'll hold questions till the end. So I just did a little summary of the state aid reductions, and most of this I've already talked about. The first is the 3 look-back periods, were April 30th, June 30th, and December 31st. So there's another look-back period. What else are they going to take by then? We don't have anything left. So up to 20% reduction in foundation aid, which wasn't true. They took it for categorical, which means everything. Next bullet is deferred payment versus permanent reduction. Deferred means, okay, we have a cash flow problem. We're going to hold 20% of your aid, and when the money comes back, we'll give that back to you. That can take up to years and years. There's no guarantee. And then the permanent reduction means bye-bye, you don't see the money ever There was no formal announcement about the reductions. I found out once I saw that we had a payment come in and said, oh, this doesn't add up. Well, that's why. Next bullet, pandemic adjustment. I'm going to talk about this on the next slide. It'll be my last slide. But there was also, in my books, a 2.51% reduction on March 31st. I'll explain why in the next slide. Federal government stimulus package. Governor Cuomo referred to this in his press conference. He was certain most schools are going to be funded. We're just waiting for the next stimulus package. He said this in the middle of June. He said he wasn't worried, or everything's going to be fine. Well, obviously it's not. So how are schools supposed to function and give sound-based education? I don't have that answer for you. If you have any questions or concerns, anybody can reach out to your local legislators or New York State Division of Budget and let them know how you feel and ask questions. You're feel free to do that. I know this is hard to see. I got two highlighted portions up there. This is what we get as far as the state aid runs. So take the first top of the page, that's last year. Bottom half of the page is this year. You're going to see two highlighted portions. One says pandemic adjustment, which is what the state took $405,000 out of the state aid, and they replaced it with the Federal CARES Restoration Act. The first stimulus package that came out, money did go to schools. But I got a big issue with that. So I am going to put this mic down and talk loud, because I want to show you something. So what they did is this is a dollar bill. The state gives the school district. This is owed to us as federal money. It's the money that comes from the government. So the federal government came in and said, okay, we're going to restore it. So the state said, okay, we'll just use your money. They kept everything. I think people miss that. I don't know how they miss that. So that's the accounting trick that they do. So there's the state money, there's federal money. Well, yeah, we'll just keep our money. So that's what happened with that right there. And that's the truth, and those are facts. So that's really all I have. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I really wasn't looking forward to this, but unfortunately, it's the truth. And this is where we're at right now. So I'm back on the microphone.
Can you bring back up your breakdown where you have all the different programs? Yeah.
That one? Yep.
All right, so based on that, what anticipating $11,000 pre-K, which is pre-K, are we concerned about that program? Do we have reduction of students?
Well, that's a convoluted question that we're really into right now. Because if you start taking away, our pre-K program, we're involved with 3 other school districts. So if we pull anything, they take the grunt of, okay, their costs go up maybe 40-50%. Because we're the biggest program out of all those 4. So if we make any cuts, their costs are going to go up.
But they have the same reduction.
Yep. If we think about cutting now, we may never get that money ever again. So that's just something we have to think about. If we don't utilize that, we can freeze that for a year, if we wanted to, but if we just turn around and say, okay, we're going to cut that, there's no guarantee. Well, I'll tell you, we'll never get that money back again. We'll never be running a pre-K program unless we pay for it ourselves. So I'm not, I'm worried about more of the other stuff, but I'm worried about that too.
So we're over 3 months past when you normally would be voting on a budget
Right.
and living under this, when you're getting this.
So, I guess part I'm struggling with a little bit with that is how do we look to reconcile things if we're still basically paying on 1920 school year, right? In some regards.
Them, you mean the state? They're still paying us?
Right, yeah, we paid money in the hopes initially they were gonna sort of they're gonna spend,
Yeah.
they're gonna get us back
Right.
at the end of the calendar year.
We put it on as a receivable.
Right.
Waiting
We
for
get that
the-
money back.
Yep.
So, what I want to try to understand is, now we're not getting that money back from the year that we just closed both sides.
Yep.
We have that shortfall that we were anticipating that is that revenue stream.
Yep.
That is the point. Now that I'm short that, we're also short these things here,
Potentially, yes.
potentially. So I guess from a planning and program perspective, just, you know, I'm gonna talk about pre-K, I think that'll make, we talk about transportation, right, buses. So we're basically gonna be short $320,000 this year, right? And I'm just gonna make up a number for argument's sake, that we were $150,000 was due to us at this year, at the end of this year. So now we're basically a $450,000 shortfall to take care of our transportation costs, right?
Well,
I know those are made up, but.
okay, yes.
That's what, I mean, those are made up, I mean, whatever the existing transportation cost was from last year, whatever's outstanding.
Mhm.
is-
Well, that's already paid, last year's is already paid. So that's 2021. That's this year coming
But
up.
no, I understand it's paid, but that, like I said, that money was owed back to us that we're not getting, right? That-
Right.
So.
We already paid for it, we should be looking, right, we should be looking for that reimbursement.
In my eyes, that's money that we're short, because that money returned to us would basically, go back into our savings account to help pay for other things.
Correct.
I don't.
In our general fund,
Yeah,
right.
So I guess one thing I want to understand is where do we have, obviously foundation aid is a huge number. But where do we see biggest hit because we're not getting that 1920 reimbursement in addition to this stuff?
Biggest hit, it's overall.
I guess, are there any key areas that we should be focusing on, whether it's, you know, transportation, pre-K program, things of that nature, that we need to really be focused on now, say, hey, there's no way this is sustainable.
Well, we still gotta transport the kids, so that's still gonna go. We're still looking for BOCES, even though they're cutting, we still get some aid on it, so we wanna utilize BOCES as much as possible, rather than buying something outright and not getting any aid on it. So, I mean, they're all, I categorize them separately, but they're really all lumped up into one pool.
The reason I asked it that way is, I'm just, through the eyes of John Q. Public, I think the initial reaction is gonna be, what's gonna get cut, and where do we go from here? And just trying to understand, with all these numbers, do we have any sense of areas where this is critical?
What I think we need to first do is we need to wait. I think we need to see when the next package is gonna come out and what comes directly to the schools effective. Before we think about planning or anything, this is just, you know, kind of Armageddon, worst case scenario. You know, just a plan for, it looks like this is where it's heading. I mean, I hope that it doesn't head that way, but I'm not gonna bank on it. I'm saying you're telling me these are the numbers, that this is what I expect.
I think part of it is we're caught in the middle of the political game that's going on in the state. And so as Nick said, we're trying to see how things sort out in this posturing going on. You know, and the governor saying, well, you know, 2-3 months ago saying, well, I'm sure this is going to work out. So we do need to see how it sorts out. But I mean, at some point, and that's why our point is, there was no press conference for this. Right? This is largely gone under the radar, to the point where people are saying, you know, where is this coming out? It's gradually coming out. We're in the problem. I'm finishing a letter that I'm going to share with Lisa that we went and put out broadly that outlines all of the reasons why this is a real problem for schools to be caught in this political game. There's money for all kinds of things. time when the school is now supposed to, by what the governor says, we're supposed to be now doing things that schools never even remotely came close to, having to have plans for contact tracing and testing and screening and buying personal protective equipment and make it tracking as phosphorus, but already to do what we're supposed to do, what we feel is a responsible way of protecting staff and students in our environment, it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. How do you take 20% of that and say that you're doing right by schools? It's outrageous when money is being thrown around for a lot of things. To leave that type of gap. And remember, 20% less of what? We had no increase to begin with. We went into this year knowing we weren't going to have an increase, which is a decrease. Because the cost of operating obviously is still going up. So this is unsustainable. And we're hopeful that some things will change. We don't think that this is going to be the permanent number. So we don't want to be on a yo-yo. Because is there going to be some level of backfilling through stimulus money? Probably. I think at some point something's going to. Do I think, as Nick said, that we're going to get fully made whole? No, because the money is going to flow. If it does come from the federal level, it's going to go to the state. I don't think the governor is going to turn it around and turn it back to the schools.
No, this happened if you remember 2009, 2010, the American Recovery Act. The same thing happened. What they said is, okay, we're going to increase your title funds, increase your idea funds, a tremendous amount of money. The same thing happened when the federal money went to the state just took their chunk out and said, supplant it with federal funds. So that went under the radar too, and it is politicized. And that's the reason why you're not seeing it out in the public. No one wants to say anything because they're afraid that something will happen against them or their school. I'm just stating facts, and I think this needs to come out because this is getting a little ridiculous. But I'm sorry that people just want to be quiet because they don't want to take off a legislator or anything. I personally don't. It doesn't bother me. I'm just
saying quiet because the governor's not going to announce this. He does not want to announce it. And guess what? I'm holding 20% of the funds, which we knew back several months ago there was a possibility of losing that 20%, which everybody's understanding was that was pertaining to foundation. So that was the nice extra kicker, was that it was beyond the foundation. It's all these other forms of aid. So it was far worse than what we had even anticipated. And that was not nice. That was not the way it was presented at any point.
And we're looking at 25% if you think about it in real terms. What I explained about that CARES Act was 2.5%. Foundation aid was flat. We usually get 3% every year. So that's another 5% on top of the 20. They're taking away from the categorical aids and not just foundation aid. We all know that they said foundation aid. That's not true because our BOCES aid already got taken away 20% from last year. So I'm afraid about what about our federal grants? We still have to function, so I still have to spend the money. We got allocated $300,000 or $400,000. I still have to spend it. I don't know what I'm going to get back. Then look at the school lunch. I mean, are you kidding me? That's another possibility. I mean, even though the lunch goes right into the lunch fund, it could decimate the school lunch fund. And then what happens though? If the school lunch fund is low and there's a negative in there, how does it get reimbursed? The general fund money by law has to supply it. They have to send the money over there.
And you have to build your budget based on certain assumptions and information that you're provided. When we're 3 months past when you've normally approved your budget, and you're expected to not stockpile money and keep money at an inappropriate level for the auditors account for, how are districts supposed to navigate through this? How are you supposed to do this when the rules of the game are changed months after you're already living in the year that you're budgeted for? It's an impossible situation for any school or any organization to function in without chaos. This climate causes a chaotic environment.
Yep, so, I mean, the truth is, we have to wait until November. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth, to see what happens. So.
There's a question between the federal government and state governments now about, for example, what we've been told by the federal government remote from the beginning. And the word, some of the word on the street is that those large city districts are going remote from the beginning because of the issue of cutting. Is that true?
I don't wanna talk on behalf of schools.
No,
And what their plan was or why they're doing it.
We're gonna be under pressure, for example, to basically scrap our program, our hybrid program, and basically go to remote, because after all, it might be cheaper.
I don't believe that's the reason. I think they're not ready. In bigger school districts, you have so much more logistics to worry about as far as transportation goes, professional development for teachers. I mean, they're larger districts. In a smaller school district, that's not really, that's not.
Okay, Debbie, but let's go back to your question. We've got $3 million we've got to make up. We stop busing, we stop feeding, we stop doing sports, we don't do anything extra. And that's what the squeeze is. That's the squeeze.
That's if you're backed into the corner, and I think this, our community is overwhelming.
The whole state, every school in the state is facing that right there. You gotta think about, there's at least 20% of school districts that if they lose that, they gotta close. There's school districts with zero fund balance and zero reserves. How is that possible?
Does it make it easier for schools to function if they're pushed into that environment? Yes. The problem with that is with the infection rate that we have, which is so far below what the rates that the governor uses a metric for making those decisions, opening and closing. And when our community has overwhelmingly said they want their kids in school. And so, okay, if we meet those metrics, if our plan has been approved by the health department, by the state education department, infection rates are low, the community overwhelmingly wants it. So then, the reason isn't because we couldn't, or didn't feel like we had a plan to do it. Is it because we're forced because you take the millions of dollars away? That's not a great reason when they throw you the curveball so late in the game. But does that make it easier? I think what is fine with that. Does it make it easier? Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to say, well, deal with it, school, because you're not bringing kids in every day. I don't think that's what this community wants.
There was also an intent, listening to basically there was also statement that money be made, and I think it came down to the federal government, that money, if the stimulus program comes through the federal government, it might come directly to county as opposed to the state, because in the past, states messed around, just as you said, pocketed the money and it's not.
Yeah, I just showed all that, exactly what you said. And, the objective is to hopefully the counties or the money goes directly to school districts. But if you think about it logistically, with all the school districts in the United States, is the federal government really gonna cut a check there? No, it's not gonna happen. And I don't even think it's gonna happen at the county. I mean, at the end of the day, the state's responsible to do, they've said it, whoever Governor Cuomo said it. It's my state, I do the executive orders. He has no say in what I do. I don't think you're gonna see that. It's wishful thinking and it's writing so people can read, but it's not gonna happen.
So understand, this is not just schools. Your villages, your towns, all those projects are off. Things, so it's on the municipalities, and it's a problem. It needs to be a reprioritization and all, what gets done. And I'm not gonna pick and choose projects, I'm not gonna tell you what I do. That what's going on through it right now. Okay, I understand, maybe that's a cost savings thing, it's really the total thing and all those things. But return goes back to our kids. We've got, I don't know what other things are going on over there, but, does that make sense? Because if we don't fix some potholes, or we don't fix some sidewalks, irritate the people, or we don't teach our kids it's
There's just more focus spent on getting $25 billion to the post office and really nothing on kids. Those kind of things that bother me. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but my job is to be transparent with the community. So, we always do that every year, whether we're in this situation or not. And it it really depends on who's in the House and, you know, who, if the Republicans in the House and Democrat is in our area. A lot of politics are involved, believe it or not. They'll, you know, but some of them can help and some of them can't.
So we have been communicating, actually, something that's up with Paul earlier today, based on some things, and then I played phone tag, we connect with you, reach out to us today.
Yeah, every other conversation is between us and legislators, regardless of the situation.
Took some of this stuff without some email, school board institutes there. September 14th, 28th, and October 19th is the congressional candidates meeting, New York State Assembly, New York State Senate candidates. So if you can get there, we need some face time with them. Also, or you can,
What is it, I guess my thing is, what does this say about our society in general, if during a pandemic, when schools are expected to do more than they've done in the past, to take millions of dollars and expect to get thousands of themselves, which is not sustainable. So something's going to get, at some point the game's going to be take a backseat to what is the right thing to do. Maybe it sounds like I'm oversimplifying it, but this is a crisis situation during this time when you're spending money on masks and PPE and those sorts of things to just function. And how do you do that when you're losing millions of dollars? You couldn't even plan for it. There are different levels to these reductions. It's one thing if they said next year, plan accordingly. We're already living it. So you couldn't even hope to have planned for anything like this. I mean, nobody in their wildest imagination would have thought that we'd be saying this 7 or 8 months ago. We never dreamt of this would be times.
Conveniently, a few weeks before school starts. I mean, it's just.
Can we ask that you look at what would it take to get our restricted funds to be released outside of the rules to continue to fund the school?
You can use them and you gotta pay them back within a 5 to 7 year period with interest. So I'm gonna look into which ones we could spend and which ones we can't. We can talk about that once I look into it. But yeah, that's the rule right now. Well, thank you, but we gotta pay it back.
Is that new? Is that something that came out of the also?
Yeah, within the week. It's been talked about for the last couple months, but final confirmation came out with it probably just a few days ago.
But that's the place that we need to continue to bring this message to the elected officials. That is where, if you're going to handcuff us to that degree, you got to at least loosen the handcuffs with what way we respond. If you're not going to give us money, that is something that they can do.
What's the action? So I don't know how much guidance there's on there, but what's the action that we need to do in order to release that? Because here's the thing: this board here is going to commit the community to basically wipe out our savings account for anything that may happen in 5 years.
That's a
That's
discussion.
what
we're
you're-
gonna have to have. No, I get it. Sorry, everybody.
I guess my question is, so we sit here, and there are probably 20 people in the auditorium, but is this gonna be a headline in the dispatch, a headline in the Syracuse paper?
I think there's some letters coming in, I think there's some collective things we can do. We can send it collectively as a board. Here's the thing: I would highly suggest. I mean, my call. If it's not tonight, it'll be tomorrow. It'll be to John Selka's office also. Rachel May's office, anybody who will listen, the governor's office, and then we'll post that back up there again. The fact that it's not, that it just kind of shows up in a lack of money in the check that's expected.
Especially when stuff we've already done, we've been promised.
Good news is we can create some of the news outlets that reached out and they're letting them work with us. So, and you can create everything Nick said, those are the facts. We would invite him right now, we'll invite any state official who wants to say that we were off base, we will gladly have that debate in the open session. That's I'm sure we are, that what we're saying is accurate.
Yeah, originally when I wanted to present this, I wanted to be a little bit more forceful and upset, but it's not gonna win anything. It's just gonna put me on the front page of the Syracuse paper. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you. Sean's got it. So, any questions else for Nick? All right. Mr. Vasetta, you've got a reopening plan update presentation.
So I'm just halfway quicker. Russ. Yeah, just quickly, we just want to, obviously that's the big news, dealing with a reopening plan, things, circumstances change on a regular basis, so we want to update you on some of the things that have happened since the last time.
I would just do it. Left and right, left and right.
Complete and total inability. There we go. So to recap, since the last time, our last board meeting, if you remember, the governor required that districts be free public, parent, or community informational sessions. Those sessions were supposed to include information about the reopening plan, and then also give an opportunity for people to ask questions. So we tried to, in the context of those presentations, we tried to answer a lot of the most frequently asked questions in those presentations. Each session, we got some time to answer questions. We realized that we couldn't always have in that virtual environment, it was hard to have the type of back and forth interaction we like. So as questions come in, we keep populating that section on our site to the answers to those questions. We also realized that so a lot we didn't want to do the minimal. We didn't want to do the least that was required. There seemed to be interest.
Okay, can you just take that screen, please?
So we had an additional session. We had that tonight at 5 o'clock. There were over, I think there were close to 120 people on today, so that's still a good response. Today's was a little bit different in that we showed one of our newest videos. So we did a couple of minutes about the distancing protocols that are in place. We did do a big overview of the reopening plan because we've done that a number of times already. That's available for anybody who wants to see it on the website as well. So we try to jump right in, answer questions. Aaron Henner, the sort of answer those questions. We also did some that was submitted. The nice thing about that format is everything that was submitted through the chat, we can keep in archives and continue to populate the SAP section of the website. We'll keep doing that. If there's interest, we're getting the idea that there's interest, we'll continue to add those sessions. Probably not only over the next couple of weeks, but even after school starts. I think there's going to be a really interest for a long time, probably for months to come. And as long as there's anybody who's wanting to work with us in that format, we'll do that. We also, one of the other requirements is to have at least one session per staff. So we try to create a couple of opportunities for staff to work with us. We have a morning and an afternoon session. Keep in mind, too, a lot of our staff is doing some of these other sessions, there's open community sessions. So it's This was not a requirement, but we decided it would be helpful to do a student informational session. We did that last week as well. Ms. Bell gets through a lot of different things that were, kids asked great questions. And you had a pretty good turnout. Obviously, you always have to see more, but you had a pretty good number. I don't know what you had. So that's available too, and we take that and record it. So these are all things that we can use going forward. We also, along with the frequently asked questions, we also were creating video series specific to the reopening plan. So last board meeting, we showed the cleaning protocols video. Tonight, I think we're going to show you what we have. Peter on the south side, social distancing videos. I'm going to show you an example of that. But I think Jake Smith, who is a new teacher in the district, Jake has jumped in. He hasn't even technically started as a teacher yet, but he jumped in. He's been working with us at grade. He's got a talk for grade video and editing. So he's been working with us on that. So we'll continue to do that as long as people find those valuable. Same thing's happening for Robert Street. We've got that high for social distancing. That was real valuable for us in the business space. And we'll also continue to do videos on the comments. We already had the additional session to get this prior to what we do tonight. Also wanted to remind people that the first day that students will be in session is Thursday, September 10th. Originally, they put the calendar was planned months ago. The first day was scheduled to be Tuesday, September 8th. We've made the decision, as a lot of other neighboring districts have, that the 2 days we have staff development, planning is not sufficient to do what we need to do to get comfortable. That we would adequately connect with the staff, that the staff is prepared for what opening the schools will look like on the first days. So for that reason, calendar adjustment is like that. And there'll be more, actually in the next day or two, we'll have more information about that. Just explaining what those first days will be like. Another thing that just came up, really came up yesterday, and maybe Mr. Condon wants to certainly explain it if you want. We were on hold, yeah, for weeks and weeks ago. We were put on hold with the announcement that fall sports is not starting until September 21st. And then we knew for some time that there would be this announcement. Okay, are we actually going to start on September 21st? There also been some discussions that didn't happen. There was a possibility of a condensed preseason schedule that started after January, fall sports. So we got sort of a mixed bag from the announcement yesterday. My understanding is there's more kites coming out than possibly today. And so I apologize if this update doesn't reflect it. Literally been in the meeting pretty much all day. You may have done some late announcement that is not reflected in the presentation. Mr. Hennigan, you want to?
Yeah, just to add to Mr. Seth's slide, the governor did announce that we can start fall sports in first plan. Start the football, surely they can start practicing on the 21st, but they can start competition on the 11th. So everyone's still allowed to
these things faster than hours and certain days, so a lot more updates that, yeah,
Did that practicing begin on the 21st or actual activity, the competition?
No, all, practices start on the 21st, and like I said, even though the government hasn't allowed football and cheerleading yet, they can start practicing on the 21st for the rest of the school. More to come whether those sports can be allowed or not. It's the high risk sport, so the other ones also, the winter or ice hockey and wrestling, they haven't cleared yet competition. All sports will be started. And they are paying, like I said, for field hockey, for us, it would be field hockey cross country, tennis and bowling, girls soccer, they are paying, they would be some cheap.
Did you get any guidance what no to low contact training means?
Say that again.
So in his press release, there was a, the higher risk sports are limited to individual and group. No to low contact training. Guidance about what low contact training means.
No, but if I guess on that, so like I said, with football, because cheerleading. So cheerleading, why you student cheer, we're not calling awesome, actually school stuff. For football, low contact, now we down there, do speed work, run patterns and stuff like that, and we'll be able to follow up 7-on-7, or my guess. But that's really what they, they're meeting about today, some clarification. That's what I'm going to clarification. Again, my guess there is no live scrimmages, no hitting, but still you can start doing some activities in the football. And really, it is, you know, when you go to fighting, great and stuff like that, the way out. Cheer, they learn to cheer now. It's fun.
One more question for that is indoor, anything that's indoor, there was also a 50% occupancy limit spectators. So is there any guide, you know, is there any guidance of minus the players? Is it 50%? After the players?
That doesn't affect us right now, because, swimming is an indoor sport, and I have swimming here in Minnesota. There'll be more talk about that, winter season, basketball, volleyball. You're a lot of people swimming out, really a lot more about before we start. And I think related to what you said,
so a lot more than sports. Maybe it's something else.
I would expect that certain guys have to sit there, oh, yeah. Check my email.
But you can tell the team sort of things happen quickly, things are developing quickly. Normally, this would be in and of itself, something like that. But then maybe that is almost like other things. But we just want to reiterate that we're working our plan to reopen. It's going to be important that people continue to contact building supervisors, principals, directors, if they got questions about the setting. Keep reiterating that. Some people have said, what if I want to have that other guy being still on that Wednesday stuff? Or maybe certain circumstances that that makes sense that it would be school forward. Those have to be conversations. We wish it could be quicker answers, but the reality is some of those decisions need to be conversations because the answer a lot of times is it kind of depends on what the student needs, what's important to them, and their needs, their family needs, input from the school. So it's not a quick answer. That's why we wanted to get the day schedule down. We wanted to give every kid the ability to do in school a couple of days as a base. Understanding that, it may be several days later before we actually go. continue to try to communicate in ways that make sense. Like we said earlier, we'll continue to communicate through these video sessions. If people are finding that productive, then we'll continue to do that. Continue to frequently ask questions, continue to put out videos. I think sometimes we do it almost to the point of annoying people, but we'd rather have it available than have people say it's not helping. There are other ways we can do that better. We're open. We're not saying that we're doing it perfectly. We want to do the best job we can. So if there's ways that we can improve our messaging, get more relevant information, we're open to those suggestions. So again, we'll keep updating people, but every day it changes. Are you gonna?
I got asked to make sure you guys turn your microphone on.
It's good that you took over the slippers. I can't do that.
Just gonna
All right, so we're gonna see the south side video.
Hi, my name is Rob Taube. I'm the Southside Elementary School principal. I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of some of the safety measures that are in place in our school. To begin, we will start with the cafeteria. In the cafeteria, some students will be eating in the cafeteria while others will be eating in the classroom. Outside of the cafeteria, we have stopping points to ensure that students in the hallway are stopping 6 feet apart before they are ready to enter the cafeteria. Each table in the cafeteria will be disinfected in between use so that students have a clean spot before they enter their desks to eat. Lunch on a cart will be provided to students who are eating in their rooms for their lunchtime. In the hallways, students will be required to stay 6 feet apart. We have multiple markers on the floor and on the wall to remind students to keep social distancing while traveling through the hallways. In the classrooms, each desk has been separated by 6 feet to maintain social distancing. Special areas such as art, music, and library will be on a cart and brought to the students in their classroom. Physical education will be held in the gymnasium. Students will be maintaining the required 12 feet distance in the gymnasium. Outside PE will be held on good weather days. For arrival, multiple doors will be used so that second grade students are entering in the office door and third grade students are entering by the gymnasium door. Walkers will enter their respective doors by grade level.
We showed the Peterborough video. We showed the higher concept and outside.
Movie stars. Saw you earlier, don't I? Saw you earlier. Okay. Anything else in the presentation? All right, I'm going to move on to new business. Resolved upon the recommendations from the schools board, let's hereby adopt the new schedule LGS-1 retention and deposition schedule of the New York State local government records. May I have a motion? Any discussions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendations from the schools board, does hereby approve 2020-21 Code of Conduct Summary. May I have a motion? Tracy, any discussions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved, on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby approve the 2020-21 student program calendar. May I have a motion? Kathleen? All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby approve the following APPR teacher-led evaluator recertifications for the 2020-21 school year. Karen Henner, Jennifer Carnahan, Chris Clancy, Sean Bissetta. May I have a motion? Wes and Debbie. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby approve the rehabilitation service agreement between Central Association for the Blind and the Visually Impaired and the district for the 2020-21 school year. May I have a motion? Excellent. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Personnel recommendations. All appointments are pending clearance on fingerprint. Permanent positions. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby approve the recall appointment of Stephanie Everett as a teacher aide at $14.51 per hour effective September 1st, 2020. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby amend Kathy Pellegrino's daily rate to $250 a day effective September 1st, 2020. Motion. Lauren, second. Debbie. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved, Nicole Runbeck is hereby appointed on a probationary basis in the tenure area of special education with the understanding that the named individual does hold the New York State certification appropriate to or required for that position. The probationary appointment shall commence on September 1st, 2020, and that the probationary appointment shall expire on September 1st, 2024, and that the named individual to be eligible for that appointment on tenure upon expiration of the probationary period shall be necessary but not sufficient. The individual has received an annual professional performance review rating of either effective or highly effective in 3 or 4 years of probationary service, and has not received an annual professional performance rating of ineffective in the final year of the probationary appointment is based on ratings derived in compliance with Education Law Section 3012-D at Step 2, bachelor's plus 30 hours, $49,239. May I have a motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. There is no substitute positions. Our next board meeting is September 8th. We'll be right here. And I did, like I said, I did have a couple of dates. September 14th at Twin Ponds, and meet the candidate for congressional candidates. September 28th, New York State Assembly. October 19th to meet the Senate candidates for New York State. We can socially distance, go if people want to go. I believe I don't remember if I got it directly or if I got it scanned. If not, I will resend it to you. Yeah, there's many dates here. I mean, we are, it also includes all the training for new board members, which we didn't have to have. Everybody's good there. But if anybody really wanted to go back to fiscal oversight fundamentals or anything like that, you could go back to that fine class.
Now, do you think it's gonna be limited because of the social distancing and all these things?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess if you you really wanna go, I would suggest that you sign up early. Pretty well.
That is, we did like, you know, all this, all facilities, all this stuff, the attachment that has to come with all of the dates and address.
So what's the 19th again, so I can already tell you that's over.
October 19th is meeting the New York State Senate candidates. This is a special meeting, we don't normally have five, I know Debbie's gonna ask me before I try to go to executive session, if anybody in the public is here that wanted to comment. We did not, I did check, we did not receive any questions ahead before the meeting today, right? So I didn't see. Didn't know if anybody in the public, I'll give you an opportunity, opportunity. Okay. I do need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. If I can have a motion, please. Tracy, any discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We are in executive session. We were not.
Same place as last year,
We will not.